The regular season is over. Got a bye week for the 49ers, so this is the perfect time to give out some love, give out some awards. The 2023 San Francisco 49ers regular season awards, MVPs, Rookies of the Year, Offensive Defensive Players of the Year, and more coming at you right now.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker with you as always for this very special 2023 regular season awards episode. And it is a Wednesday. That means it's a Winky Wednesday. We'll bring on today's guest momentarily. Thanks everybody out there for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Love all the everydayers out there. Make sure you are subscribed on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by Jace Medical. In the Jace case, empower yourself when you purchase a Jace case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50+ infections. Get yours today at jacemedical.com and use code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your order. That's Jace Medical, Jase medical.com. And now let's bring on today's guest.
Nicholas Winkler, come on down.
Wow. Action News 8 Sports with Nick Winkler.
Can't believe it.
Wink, what's happening, my man? Extra long intro today just to celebrate the end of the regular season. 49ers fans can rest easy. It's an easy week. Everyone's just getting healthy, hanging out, waiting for that divisional round, see who the teams are that the 49ers play. Nicholas Winkler, today's guest, our weekly guest on Winky Wednesdays, my former radio colleague. We used to report on traffic together in San Francisco, and podcast co-host back in the day, the Gold Faithful Pod, and that was before the Locked On 49ers days, almost year 7. Next week will be year 7 for me hosting Locked On 49ers. Wink, how you doing, man? How you doing on this bye week right now?
I mean, it's so nice, right, to be able to sit back and enjoy these 6 great matchups that we have coming up this weekend with no pressure, just with the ability to just sit and watch and just relish in the fact that other fans out there are going crazy. They're nervous. I mentioned many times on this pod that my brother is a Detroit Lions fan, and he just can't contain himself. Like, he keeps talking, oh, this is the second biggest game in the history of the Detroit Lions. And I'm like, dang, that's rough. It's a wild card matchup. Like, dang, as 49er fans, we've had many, many more important games.
We've had 5 of these in the last 5 years, it feels like.
But, there's a lot of teams out there that this is it for them. This is their biggest thing some of them have ever had, as football fans. So it's going to be fun for us, and I can only imagine how much more fun it's going to be for the other fans out there.
I was going on PrizePicks, and they already have some of the lines and everything for a lot of NFL players for this weekend. And I'm going through and I'm scrolling through, and I got to the bottom, and I'm like, wait, did I miss the 49ers? And I scroll back up and I search. I'm like, oh, they don't play this week. They got a bye week. That's what happens when you're the best team in the NFC.
Yeah. That's what's crazy is, and Croc, we talked a little bit about this yesterday with, Adam Peters, and there's a couple more teams now requesting to speak with Adam Peters about their GM roles. And the 49ers have been poached so many times. The 49ers have been through all of this with, playoff games in recent history. And you look at the Detroit Lions, and the Lions coordinators are being interviewed for other potential head coaching jobs. Like, it wasn't that long ago where the 49ers were going new head coach, 3-4 years in a row, right? And there is a ton of stability in the organization right now. So for giving out awards, great job, Kyle Shanahan. Great job, John Lynch, for building one of the most stable organizations in the entire league after things were about as unstable as they could be, 2016. And in fact,
did you say about as unstable? I mean, that was the epitome of unstable with the situation. You fired 3 coaches in a row, like 3 years in a row, you are firing a coach. And then you had to fire a general manager. Your GM, the best move he made one offseason was signing, I don't even remember the guy's name, but he was a quarterback that tore his ACL in training camp. That was the big signing.
A corner? Or
A quarterback. Is it black quarterback?
Troy Smith?
No. In 2016, they only made one signing, and it was him. It was like a quarterback, and then he tore his ACL in preseason.
Somebody's going crazy right now that we don't know the answer to this. There were also flying banners about Jed York to sell the team over the stadium.
Yeah, there's airplanes flying around. It was the ex Ohio State quarterback, right?
I don't know if he was at Ohio State.
We got to look it up. Somebody's yelling.
We'll look it up. But regardless, the fact that we can't remember his name, and that was the biggest signing. So when you talk about his function and where the 49ers were prior to, matter of fact, even with the signing with John Lynch, it was like, I'm hopeful, but off of the decisions and everything that was happening leading up to that. And then because we all figured it was Shanahan they were going to hire, but they hired, Shanahan was still coaching, about to coach in the Super Bowl. So they hired the general manager first, and we assumed it was going to be Shanahan they got as the head coach. But after all of this that we've gone through, this turmoil, you go and get John Lynch to be your general manager, a guy that has no front office experience. I mean, at the time, like, that was wild. I'm like, what the hell is going on?
I went diving in. I was like, oh, that's crazy. There's this other guy named John Lynch that's like in somebody's front office that I never heard of before, because it obviously can't be that John Lynch that used to play safety for the Buccaneers. It's not him. It's like, what? No, it's that John Lynch? What the hell is Jed York doing? I had big questions. It's like, wow, what is going on? And it turned out as good as it could possibly have turned out with the way things have gone the last 7 years. Well, just about. There was some unfinished business.
Yeah, and there was a couple rough seasons in there as well. Let's not forget, the early seasons of Lynch and Shanahan. But before that, before those guys came on and gave us hope, right? It was embarrassing to be a 49er fan, despite all the rings in the past and everything. Like, it was, if there was a joke to be had, or like, oh, NFL player in trouble with the law, like, for a while there, you knew it was going to be a 49er, and it was rough, and you had to kind of like put your hat down a little bit, and, kind of do one of these, but we stuck by it, and now we're bearing the fruit of all of that, right? I mean, it's been 4 solid years in a row, just fantastic, and now we're kind of getting to sit back and root for former 49er coordinators, right? I mean, who's not rooting for the Texans this weekend? Who's not rooting for the Dolphins this weekend? Like, come on, let's go. Let's get these guys a win in the postseason.
Hey, by the way, guys, that quarterback I was talking about, Thad Lewis.
What?
Wow, Thad Lewis. I didn't think Thad Lewis was going to show up on today's podcast.
I don't even remember that.
One of the biggest memories I have from that time and post Harbaugh era. By the way, Jim Harbaugh, congratulations. Got himself a ship. Might be on his way back to the NFL, which will be very interesting. And I kind of hope that does happen, because it'll be a lot of fun. Vrabel fired out of nowhere on Tuesday as well. But one of my memories from that era was all the retirements that happened. And I remember I was going to a slow pitch softball game, and, big 49ers fans. It was in San Francisco City League. And one of the guys was like, man, I can't believe what's going on this offseason. And I was like, I know. And today, Chris Borland retired. And the guy looks at me. He's like, that's hilarious. That's funny. Like, no, I'm serious. Chris Borland, the rookie, he just retired too. And the dude was dumbfounded. He was blown away. He went back into his bag, because we're playing a game. He goes back into his bag to look through his phone, because he thought I was BSing him. It's like, that's the. Could you imagine? Brock Purdy's like, peace out, guys. It was pretty cool, but I'm not cut out for this. I'm going to retire. Like,
because people were they really liked Borland. I mean, this was a guy, you had Bowman, you had Willis, and Willis had, he was kind of getting banged up at that time, so his retirement wasn't as surprising. It still kind of was, because it was only like year 8, but
still hurt.
But Borland is like, oh well, you got Borland, and it looks like he's going to be a starter, and boom, he just retired as well.
Unbelievable. So different now. So that's where we're at. That means the roster is very good. The roster is great. That means there's going to be a lot of competition for some of these awards for the 2023 regular season awards for the San Francisco 49ers. MVP. We got to talk about league MVP as well as team MVP as well. Offensive defensive players of the year. Who's the most underappreciated player on the San Francisco 49ers? Rookies of the year, and more next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by Jace Medical and the Jace Case. And I know we come to sports to escape some of the crazy realities of real life, But can we talk just for a minute about preparing for real life? According to the FDA, pharmacies are running out of some antibiotics like amoxicillin, and it's flu season is here, right? And there's sometimes a helpless feeling that could arise if maybe you need some kind of medication and there's a supply chain issue that keeps you from that, or natural disasters or storms, or maybe you're just traveling with your family, you don't have cell service, and you need some certain specific medication for your or your family's needs. That's where the Jace case comes in. The Jace case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics to treat a long list of bacterial illnesses, including UTIs, respiratory infections, skin infections, among many others, and some things that could happen to any of us in certain situations. So be prepared and visit jacemedical.com and complete your physician encounter. And it will be reviewed by a board certified physician. Your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. It's never been more important to be prepared than today. Go to jacemedical.com. That is Jace Medical, JASE medical.com, and use our offer code Locked On to get $20 off your order. Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks. Croc was talking about PrizePicks earlier, looking at some of those tasty more than, less than stat projections on PrizePicks for the NFL playoffs, the wild card playoffs this weekend. The most easy and exciting way to play DFS is PrizePicks. It's just you against the numbers. You're not battling thousands of other players. You're not playing against pros and sharks in the pool. You pick more or less than 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. You could turn up to 25 times your money. You could turn $10 into $250 at PrizePicks, and lots of good ones. Tons of projections for those NFL wildcard playoff games. And all you got to do is go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL or download the app and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download the app or go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use all lowercase code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Here we go. Croc, you're up first. Who is the San Francisco 49ers most valuable player in the 2023 regular season?
This was a tough one. The 49ers have a lot of terrific players. You see a lot of guys just stepping up, rising to the occasion, being, getting the most votes in Pro Bowl at multiple positions. But one thing was very clear watching the Rams game, all right, that put some things into perspective. The 49ers lost 3 games in a row. There was a couple people that were missing. And when you watch the 49ers against the Rams, there were also a couple people missing, but there was one person that really I felt like made drives go, and that was Trent Williams. So in my opinion, we always looked and it's like, 49ers lost 3 games in a row. They didn't have Trent Williams. They didn't have Deebo Samuel. So you understand his importance. And then you go and you watch a team led by Sam Darnold with no CMC, no Brock Purdy, and the first 2 drives of Trent Williams out there, touchdown. Run game going, quarterback has time, he's throwing good passes, and to me, it just showed his importance to this team and how much impact he has on the success of it. So, obviously, the rest of the game, who cares about that? Because he didn't play the rest of the game. But in his drives he was in, 2 drives, 2 touchdowns. When the 49ers were losing games, he wasn't in there. I'd say that Trent Williams has to be the MVP of this team.
Man, I'm really pissed off right now, Croc, because you stole mine. I thought you guys were going to say Brock Purdy, Chris McCaffrey. I was going to say, I'm going Trent Williams because he's been phenomenal, and nobody talks about it. And you look at some of the rushing performances that are on the left side. There was a game, I think it was week 15, right? It was 140 yards running to the left. It was -2 yards running to the right side of the 49ers offensive line. Knowing that your blind side is protected for your quarterback. And it's a great point, Croc, about the 49ers games that they didn't win or that they struggled in. Trent Williams was usually banged up or not a part of them, and you could argue Deebo Samuel was part of that as well in those similar games. So that's a good call, Croc. I like that one a lot. The dark horse MVP for the 49ers, Trent Williams. Wink, who you got?
Yeah, that's a fantastic call. But the guy that's out there, taking every single snap, leading all of the world in Pro Bowl votes, and the guy that's closest to our heart that we love more than anything because we went through so many rough quarterbacks for so long before we started. we were talking about a lot of bad stuff that the 49ers have gone through. We mentioned a little bit earlier in this show as well, but the guy that kind of stabilized everything, right? That came in and surprised the world, shocked the world, Mr. Relevant. I mean, Brock Purdy, what he's done this year for the 49ers is incredible. It really is. I mean, and look what happened last year when he got knocked out of the game against Philadelphia, right? I mean, we know how important. Trent Williams was still in that game against the Eagles last year in the NFC Championship game. Am I right? I mean, you're talking about Brock Purdy, a guy who he runs everything, right? Every single snap goes through him. And so he has to hand it off to McCaffrey. He's got to make the calls. He's got to deliver the balls. And just the progression, too, from last year. He looked good last year. This year, he looked like best quarterback in the league. I mean, it's been incredible what Brock Purdy's done. And after you come from a quarterback like Jimmy Garoppolo, who, again, brought us back to relevance, if you will, as 49er fans. And it was fun to watch him. But then you see the difference of Brock Purdy and guys that when he throws a ball, you're not holding your breath. Is this going to be picked off? Oh, is he throwing, an emergency room ball over the middle? Like, no, Brock Purdy knows what he's doing. He knows the timing. He knows this offense inside and out. It runs through him. It's Brock Purdy.
Man, just disrespectful to past 49ers quarterbacks like Thaddeus Lewis. Wink, can't believe you said that earlier. Dude, so look, I'm the president of the West Coast chapter of Running Backs Don't Matter, but we can't go through this and not say Christian McCaffrey deserves to be, considered MVP of this team. You say the offense runs through the quarterback. He takes every snap, but I think you could argue the offense does run through Christian McCaffrey, leading the league in touches, 2,000 yards from scrimmage, 21 touchdowns this year, and the ability to stay healthy. And I've been calling him a cyborg because it's unbelievable watching him perform, and it's fun to watch him play, how every yard matters, every cut, putting every effort into it, and being able to hold up as that bell cow running back for an entire season is pretty phenomenal. So he deserves all the praise in the world, Christian McCaffrey. So you guys didn't mention him. I got to mention him. Christian McCaffrey, just unbelievable player. I love watching him play, and I hope he continues to stay healthy for the 49ers, because you look at guys from the same draft class, like Dalvin Cook, like he can't even hang on to a roster right now. So for Christian McCaffrey to do what he's doing at the advanced age of 27, 28, however old he is, you see other running backs start to end their career. And that's not happening for Christian McCaffrey right now. It's pretty phenomenal, and he can do it all out there.
Unfortunately, that's not how you really feel. You really feel like Trent Williams should be MVP, but I stole your guy. So it's okay. We'll give you the CMC, and hopefully you'll be in better graces with the fan base, and they'll stop bringing up how you hate Christian McCaffrey and you hate all running backs.
Take that. Don't use Christian McCaffrey's success as a reason to say, and you know what? That worked out so well, we should do it again and go spend money, draft it, on all these running backs. Christian McCaffrey's different. That's not the lesson to be learned here. The lesson to be learned here is how awesome Christian McCaffrey is.
He's the exception, not the rule when it comes to this.
100%.
We've talked a lot about the 49ers and, their offense and, who gets the bulk of the attention. And if I had to guess, even more so than Trent Williams, all right, but if I had to guess, when those defensive coordinators are starting to put together their game plan, because they got to play the big bad 49ers with all these guys, I do believe their game plan starts with number 22 or 23 in the backfield. And how do you stop him in all the different ways they utilize him and the motions and him in the passing game? So I have no pushback at all. It really, if any of the guys that we've mentioned are the MVP of this team, and understandably so. If you're talking about the quarterback, like Nick said, ball in his hands, efficiency out of this world, something we have not seen from the 49ers maybe ever. Broke the all-time yardage record in 16 games, not 17 games for the 49ers. I think that was big, that was important, and that was amazing. But again, we put this to the test with who's playing and who's not playing, and the results came back. It's most important to have Trent Williams. It's clear the 49ers' success is a direct correlation to Trent Williams being out there on the field.
Man, if Big Trent's looking for an agent for one more contract, he should give at Crocky 209.
Let's go. Holla at me, Silverback.
I'm sold.
In reality, Brock Purdy is the right answer there. League MVP. League MVP. Should it be one of those 49ers we mentioned? Short answer, Croc. Who's your league MVP?
Christian McCaffrey.
Wow. It's not even an MVP on his own team, according to Eric Crocker.
We know you're not giving it
Trent
to an
Williams.
offensive lineman. Team MVP, I feel like you can give it to an offensive lineman. League MVP, they don't even want to give it to anybody other than a quarterback. So
It
if
doesn't
I
have to be the same player for team MVP. What you mean to your team, but what you mean to the leagues can be different.
I'll go right back to what happened in last year's NFC Championship game for why Brock Purdy should be the MVP of the league this year. I mean, look what happened when he wasn't in the lineup. You know, and I think his only real competition is going to be Lamar Jackson because, again, look what happens to the Raven when he is not in the lineup as well. That's why they give it to quarterbacks, right? Because they're the ones who make everything run. They're touching it every single time. They're the ones who really are in charge. They're making the calls. They're like you saw what Jameis Winston did, right? On the weekend. He's went in there. Yeah, no, but he listened to the coach and he was still like, nah, I'm going to do what I want to do on this.
First of all, he's getting himself out of a job and he's getting his coach out of a job with that maneuver.
We didn't touch on it. You briefly brought it up. The only reason I don't like it is because they lined up in victory formation and then ran the ball out of that. If they would have lined up in the normal formation and then just, I formation, 42 dive, and they run the ball up the middle and they score a touchdown, then just stop it in Atlanta. But when you line up in victory formation, the defense relaxes because you're assuming
like an unspoken rule, right? Where it's like, okay, game's over.
Yeah. No, that was all hogwash. All of that. I'd just start over. I would just start over with a brand new roster. That was ugly. You can't do that if you're the Saints. And I thought both coaching staffs should have been fired on both of those teams. At 12:01 Eastern time on Monday morning, Arthur Smith was fired by the Falcons. Dennis Allen looks like he's hanging on to his job though with the Saints. Lamar Jackson, I think he will be, and I think he should be the MVP of the league this year. As good as all the trifecta of 49ers that we mentioned are and some other players around the league, I think it's Lamar. I think it's his award. I think he should get it. I think he will get it. All right, next, let's go. Go ahead.
Well, it's hard to argue against that because he lost his number one weapon in Mark Andrews, right? And they still continue to thrive. Like, this is a guy that name a wide receiver, like, okay, Odell Beckham Jr., but what has he done? It's been incredible what Lamar's done.
Yeah, he's a phenomenal dude. And the way this season went, I think it is his award. And you can weigh it different ways and look at stats and look at everything. But when it all plays out, it's like, yes, I think it's Lamar. Next, let's talk offensive player of the year for the 49ers, defensive player of the year. We got rookie of the year and the most underappreciated 49er. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by BetterHelp Online Therapy. Around New Year's, we get obsessed with how to change ourselves instead of expanding on what we're already doing right, how good we already are, right? It doesn't have to be a new you every year. How about a better you? How about just enhancing what's already going on well with you and your life? So if you've been thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you do is you fill out a brief questionnaire, you get matched with a licensed therapist. If you don't hit it off with that therapist, that happens. It's okay. You switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Therapy helps you find the strength so you can ditch the extreme resolutions and make changes that really stick. And sometimes you just need that weekly check-in with the therapist to make sure you're staying on the track that you want to stay on in your life. Celebrate the progress you've already made with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. All right, you guys get a chance to hedge here because we all picked offensive players for our MVPs, and now you get Offensive Player of the Year award. So, Croc, let's go back to you. Offensive Player of the Year for the San Francisco 49ers. Who do you think is going to win it for the NFL, by the way?
Well, you saying for the NFL or for the 49ers?
For both. Let's do both.
Oh, well, for the NFL, easily, without a doubt. I don't even think there's a question about it being Christian McCaffrey. Now, there are some other guys that had terrific years. You had Tyreek Hill. I want to say he had 1,800 yards on the season receiving. That's awesome. CeeDee Lamb broke the all-time receiving record for the Dallas Cowboys, over 1,700 receiving yards, had a bunch of touchdowns. That's awesome. But Christian McCaffrey, over 2,000 scrimmage yards. His importance to the 49ers, we talked about the game plan going through him, and people just could not figure it out. Matter of fact, you knew he was running left, and he still picked up a ton of yards running left. Awesome job by Christian McCaffrey. Everything he's meant to this offense, being an outlet for the quarterbacks when needed. Great job. The way he ran the ball, the way he was really just fighting through being banged up, whether it was a calf, whether it was his core area. Terrific year from Christian McCaffrey, everything that we could have expected and more.
Yeah, it's hard to argue against that. Christian McCaffrey's been just as steady as they come, right? When it comes to a guy is going to go out there, give you at least 100 scrimmage yards and probably a touchdown every single game. And that's all you can ask for. He's probably going to win it for the NFL as well. But Croc, real quick, before we move on from talking about the offensive weapons, before the season started, you and I had a little debate about who was going to have a better season at wide receiver. And you went with Debo and I went with Ayuk. And I think they're pretty close. Like, if you really look at what kind of impact they both had on this team, this is a tough one to call. I think it's going to come down to a photo finish. I mean, who do you think really had the better season for the 49ers receivers?
It's tough because they both missed games. So we would have to kind of go through statistically and go yards per game, who ended up having a better year from that standpoint. Remember, there was even a game from Deebo Samuel where he was like banged up, but then he still played. It was against like the Arizona Cardinals. They weren't expecting him to play, and then he ended up being active. 0 targets, 0 receptions in that game, but he was on the field the whole time, right? But it was clear he was the decoy. Then he also missed most of the Browns game and then missed the next 2 weeks. So there's kind of an asterisk next to some of the production or lack thereof from Deebo Samuel. Obviously, Brandon Ayuk, he missed the game against the New York Giants, but we saw New York Giants, but we saw his impact throughout the year and having a terrific season as far as yardage goes as well. Great season from both of them. I think most people will lean more towards Brandon Ayuk, but I will say this, kind of like my argument for MVP. When you were missing Deebo Samuel, you lost games. When you missed Brandon Ayuk in the Giants game, you put up 30-plus points, won, and did not miss a beat offensively. So I might have to lean towards Deebo Samuel in that. That's my argument for Deebo.
But this actually hurts your Trent Williams argument now, because Deebo also missed those games along with Trent Williams, right?
Yeah.
We're on to a new segment. So you got
and Deebo was out of the game too in the second half when Trent was out against the Rams last week. Well, I'm going to tie these together then, because as far as offensive player of the year, I think it's really tight. The injury late in the year, Tyreek didn't have monster numbers like he did earlier in the season at the very end of the year. So when you look at touchdowns, yards from scrimmage, Christian McCaffrey does come out ahead. So I think it was going to be tight. At one point, I thought the Niners were going to split votes, and it was going to end up being Lamar MVP, Tyreek Hill Offensive Player of the Year in the league. I think Christian McCaffrey is going to end up getting the Offensive Player of the Year award, though, over Tyreek Hill, although that's going to be a really close vote. But you talking about the question, Wink, with Deebo and Ayuk, my answer for most underappreciated 49er is Deebo Samuel, because he doesn't get lumped in with the other conversations. We didn't talk about him as Offensive Player of the Year. We didn't talk about him as MVP of the team, but he's a heart and soul player. He is so unique. He creates offense himself, instant offense just by himself being on the field. Can be a running back, can be a wide receiver. And I know his wide back usage went down once Christian McCaffrey showed up. But I think people that are so quick to be like, oh, just trade away Deebo, Ayuk's better. He's a wide receiver 1. He's better than Deebo. I think that's why, to me, as appreciated as Deebo is, because he's appreciated, I think he still might be even underappreciated.
So are we going underappreciated real quick?
Well, that's mine now.
Is our segue to it? So I'm going to go with Jake Moody because Jake Moody might double up here on Rookie of the Year and underappreciated. But someone posted the stats. In his stats, kick for kick, compared to Robbie Gould a year ago, it's better. Higher percentage of his kicks just made throughout the year. And I would say most 49er fans are most sour on him, maybe more than anyone else on his roster, not named McKivitz. So, I'll go with underappreciated. I think it's got to be the kicker, Jake Moody.
No, it's the other kicker, buddy. It's Mitch Wishnowsky. That's the most underappreciated 49er. Come on. You're talking about a guy here who only punted 52 times, which is, for full-time punter, one of the lowest in the entire league. And he had 26 of those punts inside the 20. That's 50% for a full-time kicker. That is number 1 in the NFL. When he needs to get it done and pin the defense deep, Mitch Wishnowsky brings it. And back to Jake Moody real quick. People are sour on Moody because of one kick, because he missed a game winner so long ago, but people still remember that. And they're like, oh, no, Moody, I don't know if we can trust him. There's one kick. And it was his first ever chance to win a game. And yeah, it hurt when you saw it. But I think you're right, Croc. I think that's why people aren't giving him the love.
Well, the 2 missed kicks in his last game, whether it's the field goal or the extra point.
Sure.
And then you look at the final score, and it's like, if you make those, we'll win. I think that kind of has something to do with it as well. Just important. Is that you can't miss the important kicks. And I think that's what Robbie Gould. I don't think we saw Robbie Gould miss a kick that resulted in a loss. So that's why people are much higher.
Right.
But
you're exactly right. He made all those. He was money.
We got to get through this quick. To be honest with you, if we're talking underappreciated 49ers, we haven't mentioned a single defensive player. And this is still a really good defense with some stud defenders on the team. So defensive player of the year, quickly, Croc, go.
Travarius Ward.
I knew it.
The way he picked it up, led the league in, pass breakups, the interceptions he had late. I think that was big and kind of went towards his argument as well. Had a lot of responsibility. I wasn't big on him playing off coverage. I got into some all-22. I think he played off coverage well. He was healthier this year than he was a year ago, and I think that really helped him down the stretch. And he played his best football down the stretch when the 49ers need to really kind of get those wins in. So, yeah, I got to go with Travarius Ward for defensive MVP, probably the most consistent player over the year. And then if we're going underappreciated for just a defensive player, Diamador Lenore. I'm staying on the back end.
Oh,
okay. Fred Warner, I think, is the easy choice there on the defense, right? I mean, led the 49ers in tackles again. Where's the green dot? He's the heart and soul of that defense. Underappreciated on the defense. We talk a lot about Eric Armstead, and when he's not in that lineup, it looks a lot different for that defensive line. So I miss Eric Armstead. I hope he gets healthy enough to come back for the playoff game. But for me, I think Armstead's the most underappreciated.
Love it. That's a fantastic one. Wink with Eric Armstead. Definitely. He's like the perennial underappreciated San Francisco 49er. And you can see when he's out of the lineup that it makes a difference. My defensive player of the year is still Nick Bosa, though. I mean, he's got the highest PFF grade, led the team in sacks, led the team in pressures. He's a beast. It's different if he's not out there. He is so important. So when we talk about value and who's the important guy to have out there on the team, and it's still Nick Bosa. But I'm glad Fred Warner and Charvarius Ward and some of the other guys got to mention. My rookie of the year is not a kicker, because I'm not giving a kicker that award. And come on, man, could have won 3 more games. It wasn't for his missed kicks. It's got to be perfect. No, but there are some fans out there who think like that you have to be perfect if you're a kicker, basically.
That's just not true.
I do appreciate that you put him in the underappreciated category. Croc. Jair Brown, the highest graded according to PFF safety on the 49ers. And the Niners traded up for him. They loved him in the 3rd round. We had some questions about maybe speed. It was kind of similar to how we talked about Hufanga. Man, I was like, oh man, looking at his tape in college, is Hufanga like a dime linebacker type of player? Now he's just starting. He's an all-pro safety in the NFL. Stop questioning John Lynch in the safety position. Jair Brown looks like he might be a long-term starter for the San Francisco 49ers, and went up and targeted him in the 3rd round. And he was awesome when he was in there for the team and forced into that starting role when Hufanga was out. So that's my rookie of the year. Rookies of the year, guys, before we get out of here.
Yeah, I'm going with Jake Moody. I feel like Ronnie Bell, a guy who we talk about underappreciated. I definitely was underappreciative of him. Yeah. Still has a way to go to kind of really grasp what Kyle wants him to do offensively. Scored a couple touchdowns. I think that was awesome, but definitely has to go with, in my opinion, Moody. I do like the Jair Brown pick as well, though.
Yeah, you took my mind there to Ronnie Bell, because in that order, guys, I think it goes Brown, Moody, Bell. I think that's how it goes for the 49ers, which is great. You got 3 rookies that are contributing to a stud lineup like that. That's pretty good on the front office.
And some other rookies that I think might make more impact later in their careers, and they just wasn't lining up for them right away. All right, thanks, everybody. What are your awards? What did you like? What did you not like about the awards we gave out this season? Want to hear from you on Twitter at BD Peacock, at Crocky209, at Bay Area Wink. Leave a comment on YouTube. Make sure you are subscribed up on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcasts. Croc and I back tomorrow, right here. Locked On 49ers.
See you.
Subscribe to this video. Subscribe to my dad's podcast.
Yes.